Well, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and I hope you're all doing good. So just some thoughts. The current situation out there, in a lot of ways, is this versus that. This mindset versus that one. This idea versus this other one. This method of doing something versus another method of doing something. And especially in the political scene, but that's not what we're going to get into, because quite frankly, I don't want to talk about that kind of shit. But what I can do is take some smaller examples and illustrate how the small things that people start to adapt into their mindset can bleed over into the bigger things, such as politics and things and stuff like that. So an example I'm going to use is, if you watch my channel, you watch any of my content, you know that I love to spend a lot of time out in the forest. I like to hike around the wilderness a lot, and, I enjoy the outdoors quite a bit. But something that you'll notice amongst the community of people that enjoy hiking, enjoy being in the forest and in the outdoors and all that sort of stuff, is there's almost a mentality of this lifestyle or these activities versus the urban stuff in a lot of ways, And I've never thought that way. I don't agree with it, and I don't look at things in that sort of way. You'll hear a lot of people say, oh, I hate the city, or I hate urban areas because, there's people everywhere, and there's cars everywhere, there's noise all over the place, and, there's TVs up everywhere, and screens everywhere, and, the street lights block out, you can't see the sky or the stars, and there's noise pollution and light pollution everywhere, and all that kind of stuff. And me personally, I find, as much as, I think we're all wired in a certain way, I think it's all an aesthetic. It's all, there's an opportunity to do some cool stuff anywhere you happen to be. Yeah, I'm wired in a way that I love to spend time in the forest, I love to be in the outdoors, but I've got no problem with being in an urban area, no problem being in the city, and I find it's all it's just a different aesthetic, it's just a different vibe than what you might be around for the most part, and some people are wired one way or the other, but I'm sure if you stop looking at it like this lifestyle or these kind of people and these activities versus these other ones, then you'll start to notice that it's, that there's opportunities and there's things to do in pretty much any sort of environment you choose to be in at the time. And another, in the self-improvement community, which I'm a connoisseur of the self-improvement world, is there's sort of like, spiritual tenderness, healing type advice, and then there's also like hardcore, like just grind through it, hustle, and work really hard sort of advice. And instead of working together, they tend to be, again, in some sort of competition with each other. The spiritual community will say, oh, the hustle culture and the put your nose to the grindstone kind of mentality is, it's outdated, and it might gain some results, but it's bad for your spirit, it's bad for your soul. The people that believe in that stuff are spiritually unevolved, and then the hustle and grind people say that, the spiritual people, they're weak, and that's their excuse for not putting any hard work in, and they are they're a bunch of clowns and they're phonies and they don't actually believe in any of this stuff, and on, so on and so forth. When really, you know, a bit of both would be handy. I mean, you got to work hard, you got to grind, you got to hustle, you got to do all those things, and that actually, that mindset resonates with me more so than the spiritual stuff in a lot of ways, as me personally. But it's all relative, and it's all seamless in the sense that, you know, you got to work hard, you have to hustle, but it's not going to do you any harm to, you know, practice meditation, practice being still, you know, practice doing visualizations and manifestations, all that sort of stuff. And you know, and if you're somebody that does that all the time and that resonates with you more, well, it's certainly not going to kill you to get out there and do some physical work and grind a little bit, hustle a little bit. You know, it doesn't have to be a competition between the two mindsets. It can, they can both be seamless, relative, and work together for the same goal. And that loops back to the same thing I was talking about with the outdoors people and the urban people, in the sense that I'm sure if you're an outdoors person, you can appreciate, if you look for it, you can meet some cool people, you can appreciate some of the, you know, visual stimuli that the city and the urban areas have to offer, and you know, have a great time with some of the people you meet. And if you're somebody that's in that environment all the time, I'm sure you'd find it beautiful to, at your own pace, at your own level, venture into the forest a little bit, get out of the urban areas a bit, go into the mountains, you know, and meet some cool people that know a lot about that sort of thing, and can teach you some skills, can teach you some things, expand your perspective a little bit. And you know, it's not, and I could come up with a lot of different examples of this, again, that aren't political. Just the current mindset out there right now is, like I said, I don't want to repeat too much, but it's like this lifestyle versus another, this method of getting things done versus another one, or this ideology, this political group, this, that, or the other against and versus something else. And you know, I'm a firm believer that, well, for one, I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But I'm a firm believer, and I've said this in some of my other discussion videos, that the small things that we sort of overlook or view as irrelevant or not so much of an important concept to talk about, the small things that we do within those is what creates the catalyst of what ends up bleeding over into the big things. So I think the general mindset, even for the small things, that seems to be the modern way of thinking, is what ends up influencing the big things that really matter. So there are some things that are a competition. I'm not saying nothing is, and there is a time and a place for that, but for the most part, it doesn't have to be anything versus anything else. It can work together, and you know, the best way is to live somewhere in between the two extremes, you know, and use your own mind, and don't get too attached to any particular thing, you know. I mean, what works at the time, and that's great, but it might not work forever, and you should try some other methods sometime as well. So those are just some thoughts I had on my mind. I hope that was somewhat informative for you guys, and I'd love to hear your feedback and your thoughts on this in the comments down below. Thank you very much. I hope you have a good day.